Okay, everyone, we are going to talk about the Oracle layoffs. So, March 31st, just a couple days ago, Oracle sent out an email at 6 a.m. announcing about 30,000 layoffs that they were doing across the workforce. They managed to circumvent the WARN Act, which says that you have to give a certain amount of notice under certain parameters, but there's a lot of loopholes in that law, and they use those loopholes to their advantage. So people woke up at 6 a.m. last day of Q1 of 2026 with no job. All right. But let's talk a little bit about Oracle and what's going on with them. So in 2025, Oracle posted $12.4 billion in profit. Profit, not revenue, profit. 12.4 billion, okay? About 5.6 billion of that went to paying out dividends to shareholders. Larry Ellison alone got about 2.2 billion of that. But here's the problem for Oracle. Oracle is doing a massive investment in what they're calling Project Stargate. That is them building these huge data centers for all of the AI that they're investing into. It's about $100 billion project, okay? And they have, taken out some loans. They've had some investment to fund this project, but interest rates are really, really high. In 2025, I think even just in the last quarter of 2025, they paid over $1 billion in interest alone on the loans, right? So it is not really feasible for them to get loans in the amount of the $100 billion they need. So what do? How do they get that money? Because they have to invest, right? Have to invest. They decide to liquidate their workforce. 30,000 layoffs. That frees up about $8 to $10 billion in annual operating costs. That many people. So that's a little bit more money that they can put right back into Project Stargate. All right. So Project Stargate, they're building these massive data centers. They're going to be building them over the next 2 or 3 years. They're building them in 2 specific counties in Texas. They're also building in New Mexico, and I believe a couple other places, but we're going to focus on those 3 areas for the purpose of this conversation. So building these data centers, they're doing them in counties that are very rural, that are pretty low income, that have small populations, and they're doing it because those counties are desperate for tech investments, right? The land is cheap. They can get what they want. One of the things that they've secured with purchasing this land and setting up these data centers is they have gotten a 10-year tax holiday in those areas. So that means that Oracle gets to use the roads, they get to use the public services like the fire department, they get to use the infrastructure and pay 0 property taxes for 10 years. And they're going to be using a lot of that, right? They're going to be really, really standing something up. So it is being funded by the already low income rural area just for Oracle to come in and build these data centers. Here's the other thing, because I know we have a lot of conversations about the resource extraction that happens with these data centers. Okay, so let's look at Texas specifically. Texas's grid is very unstable. It has been for a very long time. And these AI data centers extract a massive amount of energy and resources from the grids. So one of the things that Oracle pledged is they said, don't you worry, we are going to pay to upgrade Texas's grid, ERCOT, okay? We're gonna pay to upgrade that since we are going to be draining quite a bit from it. The fine print on that, however, is that they're just paying for the upgrade. the new stuff, the new wiring. They are not responsible for the ongoing maintenance. And again, this is something where they are going to be extracting a lot from the grid. So they're anticipating that Texans are going to see about a 79% increase in their energy costs because they're going to be footing the bill for everything that goes on post initial upgrade, all the maintenance and all the surge that's going to happen. Okay. Here's another thing we need to talk about. We need to talk about the water supply, right? Because we know these data centers require a tremendous amount of water for cooling purposes. These data centers act like a massive straw, sucking up water from the water table in these areas. And these are rural areas. These are areas that have farmland. They have areas that already rely on having a lot of water in order to take care of themselves, and they're extracting that water. Now, they do have sort of a closed loop system where they are returning water, but the water that they're returning is blowback water. So it has really high salt content and it has really high antifungal content because they need to keep the water really clean for the cooling system. All that's going to go back into the groundwater of the areas, and it could have massive effects on the community's health. And keep in mind, also these data centers, they, just because of the way that they're constructed, they can increase the ground heat within like a 6-mile radius by up to like 16.5 degrees. And we're talking about Texas and New Mexico. So you think about the kind of summers you already have in Texas and New Mexico, and then you bump it up potentially another 16 degrees. And we're talking about, fatal heat events for elderly, for people who don't have AC, because again, rural, lower income areas. Okay. So we have all of this information. We know all of these things. And so your question might be, but this is creating jobs, right? These massive data centers, these must be creating jobs for these areas. So these data centers, as they're being built, they are going to have a little bit of a boom in the area. They're going to create about 3,000 jobs for the actual build of the data centers, which is great. 3,000 construction jobs. The second they're built, these data centers are meant to be what's called lights off. As small a staff as humanly possible. We're talking, internal documents at Oracle are saying about 57 full-time employees per data center. They're creating 57 jobs long-term. They are extracting money. They are extracting resources. They are draining these communities. And they're also creating health issues as well. They're doing all of this. They're adding nothing to the community. They're purely extracting. And on the backs of 30,000 employees who have now been sent out into the worst job market in modern history. Larry Ellison got $2.2 billion in dividends in 2025. The rest of the shareholders got the other 3.4. 30,000 people are being laid off. Whole communities in Texas and New Mexico are about to experience a massive resource drain and potential long-term health issues. All for AI.